Welcome, dear viewers of Turkish series stars, to the space where hidden feelings surface and private whispers turn into the stories everyone ends up talking about. Before we dive into tonight's revelation, remember to subscribe, tap the bell so you don't miss any of our updates, and, if you want to support our work a little more, hit the subscribe button and become part of our family in a special way. What follows is a confession that has sent ripples through social media and across Turkish television. It arrived quietly, on a seemingly ordinary evening, tucked inside the gentle noise of a warm cafe in the heart of Istanbul, when Ebru shared a line that reopened a door many thought was locked for good. Soft, hesitant, but unmistakably sincere, I can't get Akin out of my mind, and the thought of returning frightens me. Those words didn't spring from carelessness. They belong to the kind of thoughts that stew in silence, the kind that drip and drip until even the hardest surface begins to change. People present that evening say her gaze lingered in that delicate space between longing for what used to be and fearing what could happen if she reached back for it. As everyone knows, the story between Ebru and Akin Akinozu was never just another set romance, nor merely a convenient pairing that looked good for ratings. From the first moments they shared scenes, there was that rare electricity that only kindred spirits can ignite. Some called it professional synergy. Others, more sentimental, claimed it was a bond that couldn't be contained by the frame. And although the two of them seldom defined it openly, their looks, their pauses, their small, conspiratorial laughs suggested another truth just below the surface. Then, abruptly, the distance. No joint statement. No tidy explanation. Just a silence so absolute it began to rewrite the narrative by itself. And that silence, now reframed by Ebru's confession, seems to carry new meanings and questions that demand light. Sometimes I wake up and wonder who we would be if we hadn't drifted, she confided to a close friend, her voice carrying the fatigue of someone who has argued with her own heart for too long. In that admission lived a tension so familiar to anyone who has loved and lost. The urge to surrender to a memory that feels like home, and the dread of walking back into the same place that once broke you. Fame made everything heavier. Eyes multiplied. Comments amplified. Private emotions became public property, dissected and debated with a ferocity that felt unfair. It started to feel like my story wasn't mine anymore, she admitted, the words catching as if each syllable had to fight for release. She pulled herself back to regain control. But hearts don't always obey rational plans. They delay. They circle. They return. On the other side of this split screen stands Akin Akinozu, engrossed in his projects, seemingly thriving, yet never fully outrunning what once tethered him. A line from a recent casual interview refused to be ignored after Ebru's whisper, "Some things never loosen their grip." It sounded harmless at first, a line fit for any memory. Under the glow of her confession, it felt different. Like an answer tossed across a crowded room. Like a hand extended without moving an inch. And as always happens when two stories brush against each other again, audiences refused to stay in the background. Social feeds erupted in hours. People revived ship names, second-chance slogans, and intense threads chronicling every interaction. Some followers insisted they saw Ebru scrolling old photos, pausing too long at moments only she could place. Others claimed that Akin posted a familiar tune by accident, one tied to late-night rehearsal sessions from years past. Perhaps we will never confirm any of it. Yet in the soft, protective world of those who have championed them, every trace becomes a clue, every coincidence a possible sign, every sign an invitation to hope. What touched hearts most was Ebru's quiet line at the end of that evening, "If he reached out, I'm not sure I could turn him away. But I don't know if my heart could stand it." There was no performance in it, no stunt. Just a fragile thought shared by someone standing between the ache of what was lost and the fear of reliving it. A friend leaned in, gentle but insistent, and asked the question that can shake a carefully built wall. What if he's already waiting for you to make the first move? For a moment, Ebru didn't speak. It was as if a door inside her swung open with a rush of air she didn't expect. And if you two were never meant to be over, the friend added, a whisper that didn't need to be louder to leave an echo. In the days that followed, those near Ebru described a stillness around her, as though she had entered a private room inside herself. She pulled out old notes. She looked through photographs she once avoided and couldn't bring herself to delete. She visited ordinary objects that belonged to extraordinary moments and found that time had altered none of them. Maybe I turned away too fast, or maybe I saved myself, she murmured to the same friend, grasping for the safety of a conclusion that continued to move just beyond her reach. Meanwhile, on set, Akin had a moment no one would forget. He was midway through a romantic scene when he simply stopped. His eyes shifted to nowhere, to some memory that wasn't on the call sheet. No one spoke. Everyone saw. It lasted a breath, maybe two, and then he continued as if the break never happened. But sometimes a heartbeat is all it takes to reveal that a feeling you tried to file away has simply changed corners instead of leaving the room. Talk shows took notice. Specials were planned, retrospectives curated. Fans resurfaced the most potent scenes of their collaboration, calling them fragments of a love story that ran out of episodes but not out of meaning. The narrative that many had tried to pack into the past began to unspool, as if the universe had found a crease to pull. A reporter recently asked Akin to say something about Ebru. He didn't deliver a speech. He didn't play coy either. He chose the shortest path. She has a place in my life that doesn't get replaced. The line was simple, but simple can be a spark in a room full of memories. It was enough to light everything again. For her part, in a glossy magazine profile centered on style and projects, Ebru let a sentence slip that sounded as if it had been smoothed by many nights of turning it over. Sometimes distance is a way to survive, but the heart doesn't always follow the rules you set. She named no one. She didn't have to. As speculation reached a steady hum, a rumor threaded itself through the industry. Both Ebru and Akin had been invited to the same charity gala in Istanbul, set for a few weeks from now, a sophisticated event impossible to avoid without inviting questions. Will this be the moment their paths cross with intent rather than accident? Fans have already started stitching together tributes, editing videos, and even coordinating to be near the entrance just to catch a glimpse of how two people who once knew every angle of each other would navigate the first hello. Yet beneath all the noise, beneath the videos and threads and excited guesses, a quieter question endures. Will time grant them the courage to rebuild something that, truthfully, never shattered, only shifted? It is the kind of question that can hold an entire audience, not because it promises a fairy tale, but because it faces the cost of one. Those who worked around them back then remember the language of their partnership. The way a scene would find more oxygen when they stood across from each other. The way tension in a script transformed into tenderness in the space between takes. They kept their boundaries firm in public, yes, but the surface was always thin over that fire. Nothing about it was ordinary, and perhaps that is why ordinary tools never fixed the break. When a bond begins in that elusive place where art and heart share a heartbeat, separation isn't just a matter of turning the page. It is a matter of learning how to read again. There were reasons for distance, of course. Work schedules stretched them in opposite directions. The weight of constant attention distorted the pace at which two people can learn each other's rhythms. Moments meant to be private were chewed into public segments overnight. It is no wonder that a person might step back simply to breathe. But stepping back doesn't always resolve the craving to return. It sometimes makes you ache for precisely what you escaped. There is talk that Ebru has been revisiting music tied to that chapter, songs that carry the architecture of certain nights, certain talks, certain sudden laughs that only the two of them could have understood. Close friends note she is softer these days when his name floats into a room, a sign that something he once held has not been moved to storage. And what about Akin? He seems, to those watching closely, less guarded when he encounters questions about the past. When the right one lands, he doesn't deflect as swiftly as he used to. He allows a breath. He lets it be felt. At the center of all of this is a single, steadfast truth: no one has given a definitive answer. And that is precisely what keeps the world staring at the door. The charity gala now functions not merely as an event, but as a stage where fate and choice might finally share a frame. Maybe they will avoid each other and protect the peace they've rebuilt. Maybe they will trade a brief greeting and move on. Or maybe, just maybe, one glance will reopen a conversation that paused but never ended. If he calls, could I truly say no? Ebru asked herself again, and the question didn't sound rhetorical anymore. Fear does not evaporate just because hope grows. They can live together. It is their wind that makes the candle flicker in ways that feel both dangerous and dazzling. What comes next may be simple, or it may be the most complicated thing they have ever attempted. A second chance isn't a time machine. It would ask them to make room for the parts of each other that changed in the years apart. It would demand patience from two people who are used to moving when the cameras say move. It would ask them to consider quiet over spectacle, and to protect the small places where only two people can hear what the other truly means. And if none of this happens, if the gala arrives and ends and nothing new begins, then we are left with a story that still refuses to feel finished. Maybe it doesn't need a grand finale to matter. Maybe it's enough to know that something honest once took root between them and still sends up a shoot now and then to catch the light. Before we part for tonight, tell us, should Ebru and Akin dare a second chapter? Or is it better to leave the past where it glows without burning? Which other artist stories do you want us to bring to this space next? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Turkish series stars, like this video, and, if you wish to stand even closer to our work, support the channel by clicking the subscribe button. Your presence turns whispers into stories and stories into moments we share together. Until the next revelation, we'll be right here, where quiet truths finally find a voice, and where the heart has permission to speak.